We love talking Ohio State football here at Mark Rogers TV, as we do each and every Wednesday night, with Brandon Zimmerman from the ozone.net. Please join him there. He's written some great stuff just here in the last week, as he has jumped on board with the fine folks there that do an exceptional job covering the Buckeyes. How you doing tonight, Brandon?
I'm doing good, Mark. Thanks for having me again.
Definitely. Look forward to this. We're getting close. Let's talk about the offensive line under much scrutiny. Urban Meyer made the comment at some point, I think it was early in the spring session, that I look at the 9 positional units. 7 I thought performed well as I reviewed 2016. 2 did not. I don't know that he named them, but I think most Buckeye fans filled in wide receiver and offensive line. We don't know, and we're not going to know until they line up in week 1 and specifically against Oklahoma in week 2 if strides have been made. But I'll start out with this. Billy Price obviously has to make the same move that Pat Elflein did the season before. We know he's a tremendous guard. He's got to make the move to center. Just your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think Billy Price at the center spot is going to be a pretty safe move for him. He's very strong, very smart. I think Billy Price will come out of this season as one of the top centers in the nation, whereas if he stuck around at guard, he was very good. He was first team All-American last year. But I think once you slide him over into that center role, he's going to be one of the top 2 or 3 centers in all of college football. So Billy Price moving over. This is his 4th year starting. Obviously, you want your most experienced guy there at the center spot. So, and Billy Price is that. So I think it'll be a successful move for him. And this allows the only open offensive line spot to go to that right guard spot, and create some competition there where there's, some really highly rated guys coming out of high school that are fighting for that one open spot. So I think Billy Price moving to center is going to be a good thing.
Jamarco Jones coming into his senior campaign at left tackle seemed to be pretty solid last year. Most of the ire was directed toward Michael Jordan and Isaiah Prince. Just your thoughts about those 3, since we know that they're entrenched, they're coming back. What's the confidence level?
So I think Jamarco Jones out at left tackle is pretty solid. I don't think there's really too much concern with him out there. Last year was second team All Big Ten. So, there were times where he might have struggled a little bit, but I think for the most part, if you look at the whole season, Jones was pretty solid for the whole season. The other 2 guys were where there were a little bit of concern. Not so much with Michael Jordan, who was starting last year as a true freshman, which is just crazy to do on a offensive line that is as talented and as deep as the Buckeyes is. Michael Jordan just came in from the get-go and kind of took charge of that left guard spot. Was freshman All-American last year. So there were times where he looked like a freshman, but I think this year he's also going to be a very solid person. I think with Jones, Jordan, and Price anchoring that left-hand side of the line, it's going to be pretty darn strong there. And I think Mike Weber's going to have a lot of holes running through that side of the line. You get over to the right side and you have a little more questioning going on. Isaiah Prince is going into his 2nd year as the starter out at right tackle. I think it's kind of safe to say that rock bottom for Prince was that Penn State game when he gave up 14 hurries, which was the most that was ever recorded for a offensive lineman during a game. And really the whole offensive line kind of hit rock bottom during that Penn State game. But Prince was the one that was kind of singled out. As the season went on, he started to get better. I thought against Clemson, when he had that month off between Michigan and the Clemson game, I thought Prince actually played pretty good. I thought Wilkins was just going to dominate him that game, and that was going to be the reason why the Buckeyes really struggled on the offense. Turns out the whole offense just kind of struggled because they just were kind of outmatched and outcoached. So, but I thought Prince played pretty good going into the second going into his second year, I think he should make those strides going forward. But the right side definitely is going to be the one to really watch going into fall ball there.
You got to be a pretty hardcore fan to pay attention to the offensive line, the names, the abilities of these players. You got no stats to go by, basically. You've got to go by watching the games yourselves if you're that into it, or the scouting reports and what guys like us and media have to say about the players. I think one knock comes against offensive linemen and the offensive line units for any team without the understanding that it's impossible, especially in this day and age, with the exotic schemes that are put together by defensive coordinators and the sheer speed and talent on the edge by most of these upper echelon teams, that you're not going to dominate a defense. You need special players on offense that can make plays. You need a quarterback that can make plays. Yeah, you don't expect your quarterback to be ambushed, as we saw, especially in the fourth quarter and in the second half against Penn State. That was especially against a defense where we thought they had a really good defensive line that moved on to the NFL the previous season, and it was not heralded at that point. And to be making plays, that was alarming. There's no question. But against Michigan, against Clemson, I'm not saying that they played well, but I think people at times, fans, expect too much and too clean of a pocket and huge running lanes and just to have that push all the time. I think, yeah, the Penn State game was alarming in the second half. Northwestern, to a degree, considering the talent disparity and what you would expect to be able to do against a solid unit, but not a top 10 unit or a top 5 unit like a Michigan or Clemson. And that's where it was difficult to watch.
Yeah, and I think that's what kind of should give Buckeye fans a little bit of relaxation going into this year. Was, against Michigan, against Clemson, they really did not play that bad as a whole. So I think, like I said, they hit their rock bottom. But I think they kind of came together a little bit down the stretch. It wasn't perfect ball. It wasn't the best line that we've seen with the Buckeyes here in the most recent years. But I think it was good building blocks for them to come into this season and actually become a pretty dominant offensive line. The big key, though, is just going to find out who fills into that right guard spot and if they're able to step in and get up to the level that the rest of the offensive line is at.
Yeah, Brandon. So they get the two elite guards, Josh Myers and Wyatt Davis, out of California and Ohio, rated number 1 and number 2 in the nation. Do you think those guys get possible playing time? Anybody else in the mix?
I think the front runners definitely have to be the upperclassmen. So you've got really 3 guys that are kind of the front runners, I guess you could assume. First one you got is Matt Burrell, who's a redshirt sophomore. He was a number 4, or he was a 4-star, the number 7 guard coming out of the 2015 class. So he's one that could really play into that. You got Malcolm Pridgeon, who was a JUCO transfer last year, was supposed to really compete with Isaiah Prince for that right tackle spot last year, but got injured during fall camp, missed the entire season. So he worked a lot at right guard during spring ball. Really played there most of the time during the spring game. And then the third one really that's in the mix is Demetrius Knox, who is a junior, who is the number 5 guard coming out in the 2014 class. So all 3 of them are kind of neck and neck. Then you add in the freshman, Josh Myers and Wyatt Davis. And I think one of those 5 are going to come out with that right guard spot. As far as who's it going to be, I really am not too sure right now. If I had to put a name to it, I would go with Pridgeon out there at right guard. But I mean, it's one of those things where everything that you read from spring practice, it's just all neck and neck. And whereas like last year coming out of spring, we kind of knew that Michael Jordan was going to be that left guard. Everyone kind of thought it might just be lip service last year because true freshmen usually just don't come in and start. This year, there really wasn't anything like that, where there was even the coaching staff letting on one way or the other. So right now, I would guess Malcolm Pridgeon, but I mean, Matt Burrell and Demetrius Knox are very much right in the mix, and it's all going to come down to who has the better fall camp.